Well, it takes two to tango, and tonight the Republicans are rightfully stepping up to the plate, finally, demanding answers on why Hunter Biden was making massive sums of money in an industry he knew absolutely nothing about, and why Alexandra Chalupa, a former DNC staffer, was allegedly seeking dirt on Donald Trump from the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. This impeachment to nowhere thing is about to get very interesting. The only thing we can be certain of, though, tonight is that it will backfire on the Democrats in a massive way. Good evening, everyone. I'm Trish Regan. Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, Alexandra Chalupa, Nellie Orr, and the White House CIA NSA leaker, better known by the Dems as the whistleblower. These are just some of the people Republicans are demanding answers from as Dems prepare to be put on defense. Adam Schiff has sadly attempted to politicize and control this entire inquiry process and prevent Americans from hearing both sides of the story. But you know what? It's about to change. Corruption is corruption, and it must be exposed. I want to start with Hunter Biden and his $83,333 a month gig to sit on the board of a Ukrainian gas company, a company known in international circles for being pretty sketchy itself. Board gigs can pay really well, but I have never heard of a board gig at a U.S. company paying anything close to this. I mean, you might make $83K a year to sit on some corporate boards, and that would be a pretty good board salary, but you're certainly not making $83K a month. So this outrageous amount of money, you know what it tells you? And it tells me? Something is amiss. You don't go out and hire a guy and pay him insane amounts of money when he has no experience in the energy business and, frankly, no experience in anything, unless there's a reason. And in this case, that reason seems to be connections to the Obama White House. If the new hire's father is vice president of the United States and can influence the distribution of funds towards a company and a country, then guess what? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out Burisma viewed Hunter Biden as its access point. George Kent, who worked at the State Department when Joe Biden was vice president, told impeachment investigators, and I quote, "I was on a call with somebody on the vice president's staff. I raised my concerns that I had heard that Hunter Biden was on the board of a company that certainly could create the perception of a conflict of interest. The message that I recall hearing back was that the vice president's son, Beau, was dying of cancer and there was no further bandwidth to deal with family-related issues at that time." And this same sentiment is echoed in a recent report in the New York Times, in which they report Hunter Biden's activities struck many of the officials working on Ukraine policy as a necessary distraction or worse. The paper goes on to say Mr. Biden's aides were so worried about the optics, they enlisted State Department officials to gather facts to determine how to handle the story. And yet, they were also afraid to tell the vice president and risk an angry scolding, since that's apparently what he had leveled at Obama aides when they raised the issue. So, you want to talk quid pro quo, eh? I suspect that Hunter Biden is quite well versed in it, and therefore should be a witness in this whole thing. Meanwhile, other witnesses, like Nellie Orr, who worked for Fusion GPS and helped shuttle the infamous and now discredited Steele dossier into the hands of the FBI courtesy of her husband, and Alexandra Chalupa, who was shuttling between the DNC and the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, allegedly in a quest for dirt on President Trump. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty darn clear. There's much more to this story than the Democrats have attempted to present. Their spin is about to be unspun. And I suspect we're going to be left with a portrait of greed and corruption that will be one for the history books.